The world watches with bated breath. Two economic titans, the United States and China, are locked in a fierce battle for dominance. This bitter trade war has seen tariffs become the primary weapons, targeting billions of dollars in goods. These taxes on imports are designed to protect domestic industries, but they come at a cost, raising prices for consumers and businesses alike, creating ripple effects across economies. The conflict has escalated dramatically, becoming a defining feature of the global economic landscape, with no clear resolution in sight. The roots of this trade war trace back to long-standing grievances over trade imbalances and economic policies. The United States has accused China of engaging in unfair trade practices, including intellectual property theft, forced technology transfers, and state subsidies to its industries. The massive US trade deficit with China has only added fuel to the fire, intensifying the tensions. The Trump administration escalated the conflict by imposing tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, citing the need to protect American jobs and industries. In retaliation, China imposed its own tariffs, sparking a tit-for-tat exchange that has sent shockwaves through global markets and economies. Businesses are struggling to navigate this complex web of tariffs and counter-tariffs, while consumers are increasingly burdened by rising costs and uncertainty. Diplomatic relations between these two superpowers have grown increasingly strained, with negotiations often stalling or ending in deadlock. The far-reaching implications of this trade war are reshaping global trade and supply chains, forcing countries and companies to rethink their strategies. As the world watches, the outcome of this economic standoff remains uncertain, leaving many to wonder what the future holds for global trade. In 2018, the Trump administration fired the first shots by imposing a 25% tariff on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods. This initial salvo targeted machinery and electronics. The administration argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect American jobs and intellectual property. China swiftly retaliated, imposing tariffs on $34 billion worth of US goods. These included key agricultural products like soybeans and pork. The agricultural sector in particular was hit hard, as China is a major market for American farmers. The initial exchange of tariffs sent shockwaves through global markets. Businesses were caught off guard and scrambled to adjust their supply chains. The International Monetary Fund warned of the dangers, highlighting the risks to global growth. Despite these warnings, the conflict escalated. Both sides dug in, determined to protect their interests, and the trade war entered a new phase, one marked by uncertainty and volatility. The trade war intensified in 2019, with the United States imposing additional tariffs on Chinese goods. The total value of goods subject to tariffs reached hundreds of billions of dollars. In response, China retaliated with its own tariffs, which now covered a wide range of US products. Negotiations between the two countries proved difficult, as both sides accused the other of backsliding on commitments. The trade war dragged on, with no end in sight. The Trump administration argued that its tariffs were working, pointing to a decline in the US trade deficit with China. However, many economists disputed this claim. They argued that the tariffs were harming both economies, raising prices for consumers and businesses, disrupting supply chains, and creating widespread uncertainty. Despite the economic fallout, neither side was willing to back down. The trade war has had a significant impact on the United States economy. American consumers are paying more for everyday goods, while businesses are facing higher costs for inputs. The agricultural sector has been particularly hard hit, as China was once a major market for American soybeans and other crops. The tariffs have all but closed off this market, leaving farmers struggling to find new buyers for their products. The trade war has also contributed to rising inflation in the United States. The tariffs have increased the cost of imported goods, which in turn has driven up prices for consumers. In response to rising inflation, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates. But higher interest rates make it more expensive for businesses to borrow money and invest, which could ultimately slow economic growth. China's economy has also been affected by the trade war. The tariffs have hurt Chinese exporters, making Chinese goods more expensive in the US market. In response, China has been trying to boost domestic demand and has sought out new trading partners. For instance, it has increased its trade with the European Union and Southeast Asian nations. But, despite these efforts, China's economy has slowed. The trade war has definitely taken its toll. Chinese businesses are facing uncertainty, and many are delaying investment decisions. To counter these challenges, the Chinese government has taken steps to stimulate the economy. It has cut taxes and increased government spending. Still, the long-term impact of the trade war on China's economy remains to be seen. The trade war between the United States and China has had, quite a ripple effect across the global economy. Other countries, have been caught in the crossfire. They've faced retaliatory tariffs from both sides. And this trade war, it's disrupted global supply chains and created a lot of uncertainty for businesses worldwide. The International Monetary Fund has even warned that the trade war poses a significant threat to global growth. The organization has urged both the US and China to resolve their differences and return to rules-based trade. But that's not all. The trade war has also strained relations between the US and its allies. These tariffs, they've been pretty unpopular with many of America's trading partners. They see them as protectionist and, quite frankly, harmful to the global economy. The trade war, it's really exposed some deep divisions in the global economy. It's highlighted the growing rivalry between the US and China. These two countries, they're vying for economic and technological dominance. And this trade war, it's just one symptom of a much broader competition, a competition that's likely to, intensify in the years to come. It's also revealed the limitations of the current global trading system. The World Trade Organization, or WTO, has been unable to effectively mediate this dispute. The organization's dispute settlement system, it's been weakened, largely due to the Trump administration. The US has blocked the appointment of new judges to the WTO's appellate body, and this has, effectively paralyzed the organization's ability to resolve trade disputes. The future of the US-China trade war, it's uncertain to say the least. The stakes are high, and the path forward is anything but clear. The Biden administration has, for the most part, kept many of the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. These tariffs, initially aimed at addressing trade imbalances, have now become a cornerstone of US trade policy. At the same time, the Biden administration has signaled a willingness to work with allies to confront China on its trade practices. This approach reflects a broader strategy to build a united front against what the US perceives as unfair trade practices by China. But China, it's shown no signs of backing down. Instead, it has doubled down on its economic ambitions, continuing to expand its influence in global trade. It's continued to retaliate against US tariffs and has also pursued its own trade agreements with other countries. These agreements are part of a larger effort to reduce its reliance on the US market. This trade war, it could go on for years to come. The longer it drags on, the more entrenched both sides become in their positions. It could even escalate further, leading to, a full-blown trade war. Such an escalation would ripple across industries, affecting everything from technology to agriculture. That would have pretty severe consequences, not just for the US and China, but for the global economy as a whole. Supply chains could be disrupted, and global markets could face unprecedented volatility. A prolonged trade war could mean higher prices for consumers, job losses, and slower economic growth. The ripple effects would be felt in households and businesses worldwide. And let's not forget, it would also further strain US-China relations, increasing the risk of geopolitical conflict. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the world is watching closely. The US-China trade war, it's really a defining moment in the global economy. It's not just about tariffs or trade deficits. It's about two superpowers vying for dominance in a rapidly changing world. This conflict is reshaping how nations think about trade, alliances, and even their own economic strategies. It's a symptom of the shifting balance of power between these two nations. The US, long the dominant global economic force, is now facing a rising China, whose ambitions extend far beyond its borders. And honestly, this trade war, it could lead to a fundamental reshaping of the global trading system. The rules that have governed international trade for decades are being questioned, and new frameworks may emerge. In fact, it could even accelerate the trend toward deglobalization. Companies are rethinking their supply chains, and some are pulling back from global markets to focus on regional or domestic production. We might see the emergence of new trading blocs. These blocs could redefine economic partnerships, creating new opportunities for some nations while isolating others. China, for example, is already strengthening its economic ties with other countries. Its strategy is clear: to position itself as a central hub in a new global economic network. It's promoting its Belt and Road Initiative, a massive infrastructure project that aims to connect China with parts of Asia, Europe, and Africa. This initiative is as much about influence as it is about economics. Meanwhile, the US is working to strengthen its economic relationships with allies in Europe and Asia. It's a move to counterbalance China's growing influence and maintain its own leadership role. Ultimately, this trade war could lead to a more fragmented global economy, a world where cooperation is replaced by competition, and where economic alliances are drawn along new lines. A world with, two competing economic blocs, one led by the US, the other by China. These blocs could shape not just trade, but also technology, innovation, and even cultural exchanges. And that would have far-reaching consequences for global trade, investment, and security. The choices made today will echo for decades, shaping the future of our interconnected world.